Yeah. I've never been locked in a media briefing before, and I didn't really like it very much.
Sorry about the dodgy look. I should have got some black tape. Is that going to just sit there? I know it'll only hang, but is that one?
As I said,
I wasn't quite sure. It's the best thing I can
Mike's
get.
on, Mike's on, everyone's mic's on.
Okay, mate. It's not directly pointing at it.
Would anyone actually use that? Would it get stuck in there with even the water on the road? Alright. You come to me too.
Okay, you see me now? Okay, I'm going to move the camera from left to right.
Can you stand in there, mate? Just give me a voice over.
Alright, okay, there should be...
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All good?
Thank you, mate.
All good?
Yes. I'm cool. Are you cool? Everyone cool? Thank you, mate.
You're right.
Yeah. 2 minutes. They're on their way. Okay. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
You're recording that. Fair enough. Thank you.
2 minutes off. 2 minutes away.
2 minutes, anyone? If anyone's listening, 2 minutes.
Does anyone know who will be doing the...
No.
Lucky him. Possibly by...
Oh, it's definitely by.
Yes.
Okay.
Shouldn't have gone, right?
No, Neil's on 70. So, for another...
Can you stand behind it just for 1 second, mate?
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
You're right.
This is the one.
Do you know? She was going live, but...
That's
I'm trying to call Betty.
That's fine. Yeah, I should have like faced me to win. And then I don't know if I was on there this morning or something. Just walking out there. That would be fresh on mine.
Your mic's down there, isn't it?
Hello mate, just to let you know, around 2 minutes to the press conference starting.
Hello.
Let me tell you about it. It's so specific, like it's air comes around the whole building to the floor, and it's so specific that they can measure the temperature as it flies. Once it gets to this sort of space,
No, no.
it's the most pleasant temperature.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because he runs a shooter. Yeah. His number is...
No, I was like, well, it sounds like I don't want to say.
Here we go. Just watch yourself there down on the floor. Yeah.
We're right, folks. Good afternoon, everybody.
Unfortunately, I can now confirm that the death toll has risen to 12, with the discovery of the bodies of 2 men in the Lockyer Valley, one in the town of Grantham and one in another place called Lyons Bridge, which is just near Glenore Grove. This is only just recent, and we'll update you through the afternoon. Our condolences go to the families of the 2 men whose bodies have been found by search and rescue workers this afternoon. They continue their efforts throughout the afternoon, and we also send them our thoughts, as they are no doubt involved in some very difficult tasks. We have, however, located many of the people who this morning had been reported as missing, and the current number of people who are missing and unaccounted for has been revised down to 67. As I said, I do expect that number to fluctuate a little, because as people look for neighbours and can't find them, they take the necessary precaution of advising police. But we're very relieved that we have been able to put at rest the minds of many people and found their loved ones. But generally they're in quite safe places and weren't really missing, but people didn't know where they were, so that's certainly put a lot of concerns to rest. We continue to see extensive flood activity. The town of Chinchilla is now facing a potential peak of around 7.8 metres. This is 0.4 metres higher than what they saw just after Christmas. So Chinchilla is now bracing for a worse flood than they had some 2 weeks ago. This is a heartbreaking time for the people of Chinchilla. They had barely got back into their homes. We recognise their strength and their resilience as they endure this second event, and we wish them and their emergency workers all the best over the coming hours. In Ipswich, we have now seen the river reaching close to its anticipated peak. It is now currently around the 19.25 mark, heading towards 20.5 later this afternoon, sometime in the next couple of hours. I understand we now have many parts of Ipswich completely inundated. The suburbs of Gales and Goodna appear to be particularly hard hit. Crews flying over the area report that all that can be seen of this area is the pedestrian footbridge over to the Gales railway station. For those who know the area, you'll know that that's a very substantial inundation. In Brisbane, the river is continuing to rise as forecast, and we are seeing particularly hard-hit suburbs already in the Jindalee, Moggill and Euronga areas, with substantial inundation occurring already. We have continued problems with things in the river. The Moggill ferry has broken one of its guidelines. It is currently secure and stable, but we have assessors on their way to the Moggill ferry with a view to potentially sinking or demolishing the ferry. We don't want to take the risk that this ferry will become effectively a torpedo coming down the river. For people who know the Moggill ferry, it is a ferry that runs on 2 ropes across the river. One of those ropes is broken, so while it is currently secure because it's resting against the bank, it presents a potential danger downstream. We currently have assessors determining the appropriate way to deal with that ferry. Similarly, the large boat known as the Island that I talked about this morning is currently secure. One of the reasons is it's operating its engines to hold it against the tide. However, military crews are currently assessing the options for destroying that boat and sinking it, similarly to protect from downstream effects. We have substantial numbers of Queenslanders out of their homes already. As at 1 p.m. this afternoon, there were 3,585 people located in 57 evacuation centres. This is an extraordinary number of people. These are the people who have formally registered. There will be thousands more who have gone to relatives and friends. These are people who have registered in evacuation centres. Clearly, we expect that number to grow as these rivers start to swell and peak this afternoon and overnight. That number of 3,585 includes just over 1,500 in Ipswich. Here in Brisbane, some 400 people are now registered, and we expect that to swell considerably to somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 overnight. We're starting to see a significant impact of flooding in the central business district of the city, and a number of important services are now starting to shut down in the city of Brisbane. Public transport services are being withdrawn. What can be operated across the whole of the southeast over the coming days will continue to operate. Not every area is flood affected, and we will do our best to maintain services. But of course, many of the people who operate our public transport systems, our bus drivers, etc., have their own homes affected or are cut off from being able to get to depots. Buses into the central business district have now ceased. However, train services are operating into the CBD. Those train services are now operating more on a public holiday type timetable, so people should be checking the websites before they go and catch trains, but we are able to access the CBD by train and are likely to continue to be able to do so for some time, and we'll advise if that changes. A number of significant roads are closed. I won't go through all of them other than to say particularly the inner city bypass both ways has now closed. Given the difficulty now being experienced by motorists getting across the city through that CBD and central area, we have now cancelled all tolls on the Logan motorway and the Gateway Bridge. We understand that people may now have to take an entirely different route to access their workplace or to the airport, so the tolls are suspended until further notice. People should be using those roads and not attempting to come through the CBD. A couple of issues with health. Can I assure everybody that our hospitals continue to be fully operational? They all have generator backup power. They are located in areas far from flooding, and anybody who has any critical health issue can rest assured that our hospitals are capable of operating, and we have full capability in all of our emergency areas. However, I should say that all non-urgent surgery in Brisbane hospitals is now being cancelled. Individuals who are affected are being contacted individually. I hope that people understand and are patient. We never want to cancel surgery, but you'll appreciate some of our hospitals are having trouble getting doctors and nurses to them because they've now been cut off. So we are reserving the operational capacity of our hospitals reasonably for emergency and high need patients. There was some discussion this morning about the possibility of the Wesley Hospital being evacuated. The current assessment is that will not be necessary. We are confident that we will be able to maintain full access into that hospital, even if it's under a police escort for doctors and patients. So at this stage, no, that plan is unnecessary. Queensland Health Headquarters in Charlotte Street is now being evacuated, but the critical people who are managing the health services during this emergency are being relocated to the Princess Alexandra Hospital. So those people who are working in health emergency, disaster management and working in the public health areas, managing some of the recovery issues, are being located into the PA hospital. Other less essential staff in the disaster management are being located in other facilities around the southeast. A number of other government buildings are now closed in the CBD, as are most major private sector corporations in the CBD, and we expect the central business district of our capital city to be looking and feeling a lot like a ghost town around about now and for the rest of the day and the next couple of days. We now have power cut off to significant numbers of people. 70,000 people in southeast Queensland are now without power. 56,000 of those are in the Brisbane and Ipswich areas, and 14,000 of those are in the Lockyer Valley. But we will continue. Energex is systematically cutting power now throughout the CBD and surrounding areas, and they expect to take 10,000 power people off the power in the next hour. So people must expect to see their power being cut. As I've said earlier, we will get it back on as soon as waters recede and it's safe to do so. We have substantial aerial support to manage this event. I spoke this morning about some of the differences in our city since 1974. We also have substantial differences in our capability. We now have 25 helicopters servicing the incidents between Toowoomba and Brisbane. 11 of those 25 helicopters are military. Four of the military helicopters are in use. 7 are on their way or have just arrived. So we have a total capability of 25 helicopters. One of those is a Queensland Fire and Rescue helicopter, which has live stream camera capability. So it is doing aerial surveillance over Brisbane and streaming footage live back into the control room here. Good example of a capacity that was just not available to emergency workers in 1974, and it's making a big difference to our ability to get out there and respond. We've also had a remarkable response from people across the southeast. I've been talking for the last day or so about the need for us all to pull together and how confident I am of people's willingness to get out and help their neighbours and get through what is likely to be a frightening and difficult event. We've now had more than 1,500 people since this morning contact authorities offering to volunteer. Many of those are now out filling sandbags, people who have never done anything like this in their lives, a lot of young people who have no memory whatsoever of 1974, but they just want to be getting in there and helping. So we say a huge thank you to all of those people who are volunteering. For those of you who are still trying to contact and say you'd like to help, we will get to you. There'll be plenty of opportunities to help and work and volunteer over the next week or so as we go through the event and then into the dreadful business of cleaning it all up. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that covers most of what I wanted to update you on this afternoon. Can I again say that our emergency search and rescue people are engaged in a very difficult mission in the Lockyer Valley. We still have a number of families who don't know where their children are, who don't know where their loved ones are. It's tragic news that we've heard another 2 deaths. I don't believe that's the end of that kind of news, and to the families of the 2 men whose bodies were found this afternoon, the thoughts of all Queenslanders are with you today. Deputy Commissioner, did you want to add?
Thank you, Premier. No, the only addition I would update you on is that the State Coroner has been in the Lockyer Valley and at Toowoomba this morning to be briefed on the situation, and obviously, as many of you would understand, the investigation of any death in Queensland is under the auspices of the State Coroner, and we are working very closely now with the Coroner on his requirements in relation to the investigation of every one of these deaths and any further deceased bodies that we locate this afternoon.
Premier, how hard is it to tell a family member that you can't go back to that area and search, to look for your child, to look for your husband, wife, and you've just got to leave it to other people to do?
I hope that people understand the importance of leaving this kind of work to our emergency workers. These people are highly skilled, they are highly trained. There is dreadfully dangerous terrain out there in parts of the Lockyer Valley. You've all seen the footage that came out of Toowoomba on Monday. If you can imagine that kind of water rushing with that speed and ferocity through rural properties and small creeks, you can imagine the sort of landslides, the landslips, the rocks that have fallen. This is dangerous. This is a dangerous place, and people, I just hope, understand the need. This is a job for professionals. It's not an easy job for the people who have the highest level of training. We do not want other people putting themselves at risk, but I do understand anyone who's waiting for a loved one does want to be out there sometimes helping, but now's not the time.
Premier, the bodies of the 2 men that were found today in Lockyer Valley, can you tell us if they were found in their homes or in houses?
One of the males was found inside a residence, and that was the one at Grantham. The other body, as I understand it, was found in a creek.
We're hearing that out of that Lockyer Valley region, people there are just desperate for resources, things like food and nappies. What's your understanding of that situation, and when will they get that stuff?
Certainly, any request like that can be funneled through our emergency lines. We gave the numbers out at the earlier arrangements, the SES line, and even if they were desperate and they asked any of the emergency workers, that tasking could then go back for a supply. But I mean, this has got to be desperate things that will take our people away from very, very important other taskings. Certainly, I would hope that they're requirements that are not luxuries, that there are necessities that they're asking for. And if there are, they will. Remembering that we have evacuation centres, people are still capable of going to the support centres and the evacuation centres that have already been set up in that area.
Can you confirm there's temporary morgues being set up in some of these affected communities?
No, there's not. In fact, I do know that with discussions with the State Coroner this morning, arrangements have been made to look at all of our contingencies, as we would normally do. The John Tong Centre is the preferred site for all deceased persons at this stage, and arrangements were put in place this morning to ensure that we had enough spaces to meet any contingency.
On the search and rescue team, the reports that they're sending back, what sort of scenes are they coming across as they go into those areas?
Look, for any of you who've seen the devastation of the floods over the last couple of weeks, you can just imagine the sorts of sites that they've been dealing with, going into buildings which have been flood affected. There are buildings up there which have been completely destroyed, and that's where the expertise of the urban search and rescue groups from Queensland Fire and Rescue, they are specifically trained to use special cameras, a whole range of techniques to try and identify if there are persons deceased inside those buildings. So, look, our hope is that we actually might find some survivors, but the chances of that, I think, are quite remote. But there's always that hope. We have to meticulously and painstakingly get into each of these sites. This is not just about the buildings. This is about bodies caught up in trees, beside creeks. All of that we are searching. Absolutely. And I am sure that we haven't found the last of the vehicles that have been washed into creeks and things like that. So this is a very, very difficult task that will go on possibly for days.
You say there's 67 missing at this stage. How many have you significant concerns about?
Look, that number is varying so quickly. What I can say is that the 2 bodies that have been confirmed in the last hour or so were not part of the group that we knew were missing, and so they haven't affected that number of 67. But as you can imagine, there are some people that we still hold grave fears for. And certainly in the Murphy's Creek area, I believe that number is still 11, but the grave concerns that we have is such a moving feast, we've decided that it's better to say how many missing persons there are and how many confirmed deceased.
Who will make the decision if the island and ferry should actually be sunk to stop being a threat?
Look, that matter has been discussed at the highest levels, and the Premier has been briefed, as has the Minister. But the decision rests with the DDC, the District Disaster Coordinator for Brisbane, and that's Assistant Commissioner Peter Martin. He is getting situational awareness and responses on the hour in relation to the assessments that are taking place right at this moment. And if we have to go to the next step, which is to make those decisions about scuttling either or both vessels, then ultimately the decision will be with him. However, there are implications of that decision, as you can well understand. These are not small items, and there are a whole range of contexts that would have to be considered, and I'm sure that he will take those into account should he need to make that decision.
But he will make that decision based solely on the interests of public safety. If it's needed for public safety, it will be done.
Premier, a few hours ago there were concerns that people were ringing 000 unnecessarily. Since you've asked people to back off that, have you had a response yet?
Look, no, certainly I haven't. I haven't had the opportunity to follow up on the volumes, but I'm hoping that through your help in the media that people will take notice of these warnings, will take notice of what the other avenues of communication with emergency services and police are, and use those instead of the 000 system.
Okay, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.